BA, how are you?
Good, doing good.
So for everybody, this is BA. BA was in the club for what, 10 years?
6.
6? Okay, 6 years.
Yeah.
And tell us about the first time you know Pee Wee personally, right?
I knew him. I knew he was originally from Milwaukee, and he was in another club back then, and they had a charter here in Michigan, in Holland, and they would frequently come to Michigan, and for that charter, they were the other state, but the same club, kind of just like 81. And that's the first time I met him, but I was young. I was young. I was probably in my 20s, early 20s. That was the first time I was just kind of mesmerized by the size. He's a very big dude. You don't see normally people that size. You see him now, and it's still like, holy, the guy's huge. But back then, when he was at his prime and he was in really good shape, he was, I think he holds the record in the state of Milwaukee. He never was beat for kickboxing. Never was beat. The Locomotive. There's some old footage on YouTube, man. I mean, a guy that size doing a roundhouse is just incredible to see.
Yeah, he was into the tough man competitions and everything else.
Yeah, yep. So that was the first time, and then there was a number of years there where I didn't, see him.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in the club, and but then when I seen him, then when I did see him, once I started prospecting, and I seen him. And I knew he was Hell's Angel, and I was like looking forward to seeing him. I was like, "Oh, you're prospecting! Oh, right on, BA!" And it was just always good from that point forward,
Yeah.
And then I used to go to Sturgis and work at his shop every rally, being a motorcycle mechanic. I helped him out. I didn't go there to work for money. I went there to help him. I didn't get paid, but went there to help my bro. You know what I mean? So that was a good time.
Yeah,
a lot of fun.
Well,
I'm glad our relationship was able to be reconciled. Not that it was bad, just the way the club rules are. Once you're out bad, then you get no association with any other members, And I think it's more like inside you feel like, man, I really want to reach out to these guys because you love them. They become part of your life, like daily, But yet, the club has a weird way of twisting your mind to follow the rules and not, who would know? You know what I mean? Who would know if you called one of your bros and said, "Hey, man, this one's how you're doing." You would know, but nobody else would except for the person you're calling, obviously.
Right.
But you still you feel that guilt of going against the club policy, being a member. You don't feel that's, you can't go against that. I mean, it's just weird how it changes the way you think about things. And I think, and I don't know if that's for every member, but I know that's that way for me. And when me and Pete, we talked about it, the first time after was all said and done, and how we were able to get our friendship back was kind of ironic. The first thing he said to me, "BA, man, I'm so sorry I didn't reach out to you. Man, I feel so bad." And I'm like, "Hey, bro, I understand." You don't have to explain anything to me. I totally understand. It's just the way it is, know. And I think a lot of guys would say the same thing. It's just it's weird how the club makes you think. It changes the way you think, and in that matter, you do think differently for sure. At least it did for me. Because I wanted to pick up the phone and call lots of people.
Yeah.
And I made it funny. And every time my phone would ring, I'd hope it would be somebody calling me, but that wasn't the case. And I did have some members call me. Say, "Man, BA, what the hell?" And I'm like, you find out and let me know, because I still have no idea. The way it happened was totally like no explanation of anything. And I mean, I'm going, why is this happening? What happened? Well, where'd this come from? And I went there to do a calendar shoot with Bonds, and we spent 2 days riding around in the city and in the Bronx. And I'm sure he didn't plan on doing that to have it all be worth nothing.
Yeah.
Because that's what it was. It was absolutely a waste of his time and my time. And it was 2 full days of being all over the place taking photos, and that was on Saturday. And the next day I'm, baseball batted and on my way back to Michigan, you know.
Let's break down that whole story because it's one of the worst. And after we've talked, like, I got a picture. Somebody
Yeah.
sent me a picture of
Yep.
after.
Yep.
It's horrible. It's horrible. So you want to tell everybody about that, about basically the circumstances around you being put out of the club and how that went down? Because it was horrible.
There was some things happening that were going on during this, but I didn't. The things that were happening, I thought were dealt with. We dealt with them in Sturgis, which obviously in August. While I was in Sturgis, I got the call from Bonge about coming to New York to do the calendar shoot, and I'm like, oh man, I've already been gone. I'm going to be gone. Before I get home, it's going to be close to a month. And being a business owner and a father, it was, a lot to do to stay gone for a month. And, being gone for a month is a long time. But I'm like, I can make it happen. I'll be there, And so we got done with Sturgis. We packed up. I had a support booth set up there for Michigan, and I had a prospect with me, and we loaded up and we came home. And then I got home on a Tuesday. 2 days later, I was on my way to New York. And while I was in Sturgis, John Merchant, who, of course, you know who he is, had asked me, "Hey, I heard you're going to New York." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "Hey, man, can you stop and pick me up? I don't, I'm didn't have a driver's license, couldn't ride or drive. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. Cleveland's right on the way. I mean, I don't go out of my way at all. I mean, to get off the Cleveland exit, bang, there's a clubhouse, pick them up, and we're off to the city. Well, I leave, I get there, and I try to call him a few times, can't get an answer, which wasn't no big deal. I get to the clubhouse, there's a couple members there. I think Goose was there and Kong was there, if I remember correctly, and hung out for a while, and Goose kind of like made jokes about it. He goes, "Oh yeah, you'll be here till tomorrow waiting on him. He don't give a shit if you wait or not. That's just the way he is." I'm like, well, it's kind of easy to say about you, bro, but I guess maybe I'll probably say that tomorrow. You know what I mean? So I waited around, and nobody, he never came, never showed up, no call. So my obligation was to try to be on time for the prior commitment that I already made with Bonge, who was a New York City member. And I didn't want to not be on time for his gig because it was a scheduled deal. So I'm like, hey, I got to go. Sorry, I'm leaving. So I drive to the city. I get there, and I'm not there very long. And I get asked why I left John. What did you leave him for? I'm like, what do you mean? I didn't leave him. I heard he was here already. And they're like, well, yeah, he is. But, we got told that, he never showed up. I'm like, well, that's bullshit. I did show up. Got two members at the Cleveland clubhouse that I spoke to personally. Don't say I didn't show up. I did show up. So that kind of was like, caught me off guard a little bit, but it wasn't a big deal. Everything kind of went away, Pee Wee, of course, right away, I'll be here, and I mean, it was party on from that point, forward. That was Wednesday night. So, or Thursday. Friday came, we went to dinner, we hung around at the clubhouse. It was an anniversary party for some members. Their anniversary party was going on, and it was Memorial Day or Labor Day weekend, of course. So, and it was right after, this would have been only a couple years after 2001. So there was still a lot of stuff going on in the city because of 9/11. It was really still really fresh in everybody's mind. And, it was still an ugly sight there. Saturday comes, me and Bonge, we spend the whole day. I think it was Friday, actually. It was Friday. And then Saturday morning, we did going all over the place in the city, to the Bronx, to the bridge, all different places, take, cool photos. I don't know if you have like the poster, I think that Pee Wee's saying is him on the calendar. Yeah. And I had a really, really nice bike that was totally full blown. And I'll send you some pictures of it. That was totally blown custom, Hell's Angels paint job, custom wheels, rotors had Hells Angels cut in them, had machined Hells Angels on the, in some of the motor parts and stuff. So it would have been a nice addition to the calendar. That's why Bonge, picked me. I mean, it wasn't something that you chose. It was, he chose, and, so we get done with that, and, the party goes well. Everything's, everybody's having a good time. And, Pee Wee, a couple of the members, borrowed my truck and went upstate to see one of the members that was in prison. And they got back and they're like, "Hey, BA, thanks for letting us use your vehicle." And I'm like, "Hey guys, no problem, man. It's what Brotherhood's about, And that was Smiling Rick, actually, from Washington. And so Sunday comes around and it's kind of like everybody's kind of getting ready to leave. Some guys are staying. There's some Canada guys there. There's some guys there from Cali. They're getting ready to fly home. And Pee Wee, of course, and Brad, they're going to go to the airport. And I'm like, "Pee Wee, you want me to take you to the airport?" And he's like, "No, bro, we're good, man. We're good." I'm like, "All right." And they leave, and Cornbread was still there. And little Mike from Cleveland was still there. Some guys that I knew like prior to going to New York. You know what I mean? You always meet new members all the time. But these guys I've met more than this occasion. And they were, met them at lots of different occasions. And we went out Saturday or Sunday, kind of around town and stuff. And I was speaking of getting ready to go home. It was starting, the weekend was over. I had to drive back to Michigan. It's Labor Day. The next day, which Monday would have been Labor Day itself. And I really didn't want to drive during the afternoon through traffic. I wanted to leave Sunday night and be out of the city before, the wrecking ball, And I don't recall the member's name. I know if I seen him in a crowd, I could pick him out. He said, "Hey, BA, I think Brendan wants to talk to you upstairs." And I'm like, "Okay." And Brendan was the president of New York. And so I go upstairs, I knock on the door. He was on the phone with his mom. And I stood there and waited for him to get done, and it was kind of funny because this big, burly, bad looking dude. And, he's, "I love you too, Mom." It's just kind of like, he's, it is when it's your mom's your mom. So we kind of chuckled about that a little bit. And he's like, "Hey, what's happening, man? I heard you leaving." I go, "Yeah, is that okay?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "Are you giving John a ride back to Cleveland?" I'm thinking, what the hell is the big deal? Why am I attached to John Merchant? This whole thing has been questioned about him right from the get-go, when all it simply was is he was at Pee Wee's in the shop when he heard me talking to Bonge about going there for the calendar shoot. That let him know that I was going to be going to New York, and he asked me for a ride. And this whole thing has just snowballed into everything turns around and is revolved around what's going on with John Merchant. I'm like, "Hey, I don't know. I mean, if he needs a ride, he is more than gladly ride with me. But do I got to wait? Is that what you're saying? Because, hey, I already waited coming here. And I don't agree with that. If I don't know what the reason is. I guess I'm asking for an explanation, not to sound disrespectful, but you're asking me if I'm waiting, and I've already waited before, and I haven't seen John but only a couple of times throughout the weekend. He's going, and everybody's doing their own thing. And I said, "Yeah, if he needs a ride, no problem." He said, I want you to wait for him." I said, "Okay, I can do that." So I go back downstairs, and I'm kind of like a little irritated about it, but I didn't say nothing. Well, there were some guys going to CBGB's, iconic place in the city. Was the last show to ever go there. Place got bought by some big developers, and they were bulldozing it down. So it was the last time they were going to have a show there, and these guys were talking about it. And I go, "Oh, hell, I'll go. That sounds like a good time." Now I'm thinking I'm probably not going to leave till tomorrow, for what it's worth. So we go, we hang out, we have a good time, we leave, and we get back to the clubhouse, and it's probably like 1:00 in the morning. I go in, I go behind the bar, and I get a Gatorade out of the cooler, and I turn around, and I got a member standing right in the doorway of, right in the approach of going to the bar, and he goes, "Hey, well, who told you could go behind the bar?" And I'm thinking to myself, has New York got a rule? I mean, is it, kind of like caught me off guard. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm getting a drink. I'm a member. I got to get permission to go behind the bar. You know what I mean? I was totally like trying to figure out why I was being asked that. And I'm thinking, New York's New York, I mean, prospects don't even go in. They not even, when you prospect in New York, you're outside the whole entire time you're there. If you're there 3 days, you're outside for 3 days. You don't go in. They don't allow prospects in the clubhouse. So I'm thinking, no, I'm in the city. Maybe something's different here. I don't know, and I didn't get sarcastic about it. I go, well, I guess why would you ask that? I mean, is there an explanation to that? And I remember him just kind of giving me this look and shaking his head. And behind him was Papa from Frisco, and JD from Arizona. Cornbread was sleeping on the love seat, and little Mike from Cleveland was playing video games. And I had been over there talking to him prior to going to getting the drink. So I go back over by Mike, and I remember asking him, I'm like, Mike, is there a rule about members not from Chicago going behind the bar and getting a drink? And he was like, not to my knowledge, why, BA? And I said, well, I just got asked by a member. And he's like, who? And I turned around and I pointed to him. Well, they were sitting down and seeing me pointing to him. And I remember somebody saying, oh, what are you? You're a rat too, or you're a snitch too? And I said, a snitch? What? I'm asking my bro about rules here because I'm still dumbfounded that I got questioned about going behind your bar. And lights out. Well, I come to, and I remember laying on my back, looking up, going, what the fuck, and I can't see. I mean, very good. My head was smashed, but I had blood in my eyes, and I could kind of making out 4 or 5 guys standing over me, and I hear this girl just screaming like, oh my God, why did you do that to him? Look at, oh my, and I could hear her screaming. And she gets down on the floor, and she said, oh my God, and I get up, and there was a bathroom right adjacent to where this happened. I go in there, and I'm putting cold water on my face, and she's in there helping me, and she's crying and she's yelling. I don't remember all the things that she was yelling, but she was yelling for help, and I'm like, man, don't yell for help. Why are you yelling for help? I mean, this ain't good.
Yeah.
And I'm washing my face and stuff while I go to look at myself, and I'm like, I can't see. So I stick my hand in there and pry these big pork chops that were already, swelled up. Well, you see the picture.
I have the
And
picture.
I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, man, I got to get out of here. Man, I got to get outside because that was my biggest thing. I want to be outside because, being locked in a building with a whole bunch of guys, some of them you don't know, ones that you do know aren't there no more. I yelled for Cornbread. He was out cold. I mean, I yelled, Cornbread, I yelled a few times. And Mike, he was a little, he's a 60-year-old little guy, about 5 foot tall, little big dude. And I remember hearing him saying, that's a bunch of bullshit, mother. He was letting them have it, And so I go out, and I go out there and I get him the fuck out of here. Don't let him die in here. Don't let that motherfucker bleed to death in here. And I'm going down the hallway, out the big steel door I go. It's daylight. So my time conception now is, man, how long has this been going on? I mean, my head's all just twisted around because when I went there, it was not daylight. And the things that happened seemed to be in a short, it was a short matter of time, it seemed to me.
Yeah.
It did, there was a time lapse there to this day. I think about it occasionally. I'm like, man, what, how long was I out for? Or, you know, it
I
doesn't
mean,
matter, but it's just one of those things. So out I go, and there was a member outside that I had talked to throughout the weekend. I guess he's not in the club anymore. He was a stand-up member when he was in the club. He was a prospect when that happened, and that was Jeremy. And he was like, "Holy man, what happened?" And I'm like, "I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know." And I remember walking down the sidewalk, and I'm like, "Man, I gotta get to my stuff. I gotta get my stuff. I gotta go. I gotta get my stuff. I gotta go." And I come back, and here's Merchant. Hey, get in the truck. He's yelling at me, get in the guy in the truck, and he throws his in the back, and we hop in the truck, and he's like yelling, and we're going down. I remember going down these roads to get onto the highway, and I'm not saying anything. I'm just listening to him, and I'm letting him rant, and his phone's blowing up, and he's on the phone, and he's yelling, and he's right here next to me, and I had my colors on still. This is a crazy thing. Still had them on. I still had my patch on, and we go, and I just put my head against the window, and I don't say anything, and he's steadily just running off at the mouth, talking to me, obviously, but it wasn't getting a reply. And then he's on his phone, and we get to Quakertown, I think, Pennsylvania, to get gas, and I go in, and the girl at the gas station seen me and was like, "Oh my God, you need to go to the hospital." She started freaking out. I'm like, "Hey, stop. I'm fine. Don't." And she's like, got the phone, and I'm like, "Please do not. Hey, here's the money. We're out." So I go back out there, and I'm like, "John, hey, bro." That's what I said to him. Like, "We got to go, man. This bitch is going to call 911. And she sees me. She's just freaking out in there, and the cops are going to come. And I didn't call them. So we get in the truck. We take off. Call the cop. I'm like, "Hey, dude, I did not. That's what my whole hurry was. That's what I don't want happening." So, of course, for the next 30 miles, he's up in the mirror, looking back, looking around, waiting for the police to pull us over. That, of course, never happened. So then I think it's like a 9-hour ride, I believe. I think it's 9 hours from Michigan to New York, if I remember correctly. He's on the phone with members from Ohio, Michigan. I think he's on the phone with Chicago. He's on bad. Okay. Yep. All right. I got it. So, yep, you're on bad. Pull over. We're pulling over. So we pull over on the side of the road. He comes around, pulls my vest off, rolls it up in a roll, puts it behind the seat, and pulled my necklace off. And I mean, not nicely either, just totally punk, just totally being a dick, And of course, I'm not fighting back. I'm not saying anything at this point. I mean, just, I want to go. I want to be somewhere where there's nobody that's got Hell's Angels colors on.
yeah.
So we stop in Cleveland, and I hear him talking to these guys, and we're in an apartment, like a projects. Place was real shit hole. There was like cars sitting around with windows blown out of them and tires gone. And I'm like, "Man, what are we doing?" And I don't have a clue what's going on at all. And he's like, "Yeah, you want to see what happens when you get your ass beat by a Hell's Angel?" And he opens the door, and he's showing these guys my face as I'm sitting in the truck, and they're laughing. He's laughing, and these guys are like, "Holy," and he goes, "Yeah, that's what happens when you fuck with Hell's Angels," and shuts the door. And I hear him out there talking, and we leave there, and he tells me, "Well, you're getting picked. We got another member coming to meet me because I'm home. Of course, you're going to South Bend." I'm like, yeah, whatever, however you got to do it, man. Don't get mouthy with me. You're gonna get your ass beat too. I'm gonna whoop your ass too before we depart our ways. I'm gonna get my lickings on you. And I'm like, "Oh, fucking yeah, go ahead, man, shoot me." At this point, I don't even give a shit anymore. So we get off the road. where I think we're on a dirt road. It's kind of rough. There's nothing around. I remember looking around kind of, I mean, I'd have to literally hold my open to see anything. When I was like not had my fingers in my eyes, they were swelled shut,
Yeah.
And the member that picked me up was a guy that I thought was a good friend. I mean, he was a member, Stevie D. And he's like, he didn't say anything to me. He didn't say BA or nothing. Him and John did their talking, and John jerked me out of the truck, and oh yeah, that's right. You're not going with him. You're staying in your truck. He throws me back in, shuts the door, and then Stevie D gets in, and we leave. And we're in my truck. My motorcycle's still in the back. We go to South Bend. We get to South Bend. Now, during all this time, the Hells Angels already been to my business and to my house in Michigan, and went to my house where my wife and kids were, and went in and took, all Hells Angels memorabilia. I had a bar in my basement that was all Hells Angels. They took everything from there, and then they went to my business. They took the computer, filing cabinets, shit that didn't pertain to the club. It was, personal stuff, but I'm not going to sort through it. One thing in there's got Hell's Angels on it, all is going. So when I get home, I get brought to Muskegon. Well, there was one member. Now, while all this was happening, you don't learn this till later, members were quitting, guys had quit. It was turmoil. Things were going crazy on phones. People were going over to, Michigan was instantly like frozen. Like the brakes got stomped on, and guys are being thrown out in bad. The whole charter was in bad.
Right.
One way to eliminate it all, just put everybody in bad, and then go. That eliminates all the bullshit, except for one guy,
The treasurer. Right.
Of course.
And
Which I'll tell you a little about that too. That's real interesting about that. Very. So my sponsor, who sponsored me, got wind of this, and he called the treasurer of Michigan and said, "You're not keeping BA's bike, period, or you're going to deal with me." And the driver that drove me from South Bend to Muskegon, which is 112 miles, he asked me, "Where's your treasurer live?" Well, I didn't even know whereabouts I was at. I knew I was in Michigan and I was on my way home, but I didn't have any idea of exact location. So now I got a member asking me where he lives because we're going there. And I'm like, not sure. And he's like, "What do you mean you're not sure? You don't know where your members live of your own charter?" And I'm like, "Well, hey, man, whereabouts are we?" And he told me, and I'm like, "Oh, the next exit, take a right. And then you get to the next exit, take another right," and was right up the hill. And it ended up being that. So we get there, we unload the bike. I don't even talk to the member who I brought around to get into the club. And I get home and it is what it is. I mean, it's bad for the first week. I mean, I didn't get out of bed. My mom came and, "Please, go to the hospital. You're bleeding down the back of your throat into your stomach, and you might have brain hemorrhage." And I'm like, "I'm not going to the hospital," because I knew if I went there, then of course they knew that I was in Hells Angels, and I didn't want to involve anybody more than what's already involved,
Right.
just because of what I already seen happen in the past with other people. So I didn't go to the hospital, not until like a couple months afterwards, because I had continuous headaches. But they busted both orbitals had been broke. The doctor told me they had been broken, and my nose, of course. So, and the thing too is I had some members' bikes at my shop that were there that had been stored there for the winter I was doing work on. So I'm like, I'm gonna get my chance to talk to somebody because I got their motorcycles at my place, and they were good guys. They, I love them and respect them to this day. They never did me wrong. And they called me and they're like, "Man, BA, what the And I'm like, hey, bro, I don't know, man. Find out, please. I didn't know something. But your bike is safe. You know, whenever you want to come and get it, it's here. You know, and they were here the next day and got their stuff, you know. And I never talked to them ever again. And but the thing is, with the money, with the treasure thing, I'll back to that. This is kind of crazy. We had like $34,000 worth of support gear money from Sturgis. And it was a real big deal that I'd take that to the treasurer before I go to New York. Even though I was only home one day, I was like, he's blowing my phone up. Gotta have the money, gotta have the money, gotta have the money. I'm like, hey, no problem, man. I mean, I'll bring it to you, you know. So all of that money was not just the charter's money. It was going to pay back all of the support gear that I got on a front from my people in my hometown where I've been doing business with for, you know, at that time I was in business for 20 years or 15. They were my friends and they were businesses. So they didn't have a problem with saying, here's $20,000 worth of merchandise. Pay us in 90 days, 30 days, whatever. So Jim's like, hey, when you get back, we'll sit down, we'll figure all that out. Of course, that never got figured out. And I got stuck holding the bill for the support gear and had to pay those people back. Had to set up payment arrangements, $1,000 a month to pay back $24,000 worth of stuff that I had out front. All these years later, Michigan reestablishes, and the new president makes contact with me wanting to know what happened with me in the club, because all the time of processing of trying to get the charter reinstated, my name came up a lot. And he said, man, never nothing bad. Always your name's always been brought up, and I don't understand why you're on bad. I said, good question. I don't either. So we talked, you know, quite regularly for like 6 months. I mean, he kept in contact with me weekly, you know, and I was like, man, I don't know, I feel good about this, because I wonder if he's telling anybody or if it's just like between him and me, or, you know. And he's like, I'm going to get your status turned around, BA. It's only right that that's what happens, because you shouldn't be in bad. And I said, well, you know, that's not up to me. And I tell him the story, and he says, I wonder if that piece of shit, because he didn't like the guy, I wonder if that piece of shit ever gave the club the money. I said, well, I don't know. If he did, he'd had given it to Chicago, because I think that's where he had transferred to. That was either that or South Bend. One of those two charters is where he went. So a couple of weeks went by, and he called me. He goes, hey, man, he says, I had his secretaries go back in both charters, and there's nothing in the minutes that states that any of that money was ever brought up or put on the books in the club. And he was still a member. So he pocketed the money because there was nobody to tell anything about it. Me being out, nobody knew, but it was my word against his. And I'm out in bad, and he's the treasurer. So, you know, he got a nice big free wad of money, you know.
Do you think maybe he parlayed having that money in his pocket into him being able to transfer, knowing that they were about to freeze your entire club and basically put all of you out?
Well, I think that he didn't probably know that until after it happened, but he was holding the money, and nobody knew. It's only a couple of days. I mean, I took it to him. It was cash, you know. So one of those kind of deals. But something else I want to mention. When Pee Wee and my son were having a conversation in Milwaukee, Pee Wee invited us to go to one of his high school friends' parties he has every year. So we went over there and we stayed at the hotel, and we took the ferry across Lake Michigan, and it was cool. So him and my son, they were talking, and Pee Wee was telling him a story about one of the Daly City members loaning him some money to help him out when he was on some hard times, and his own charter wouldn't do it. And Papa from Frisco found out, and I guess told Pee Wee, hey, man, I ought to put you out of the club. You know, don't you piece of shit, you're dealing with those guys. Those guys are scumbags and hate Daly City members. They're worthless pieces of shit, blah, 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 blah. You know, just Pee Wee said he couldn't believe what he was being told by a member. about another charter that were good guys. Well, I had a Daly City hat on in New York because we had a member in Michigan that was a Daly City member once and then quit the club but was in good standings. Had moved to Michigan, got a job at the State of Michigan University. He worked at MSU University and he prospected and become an House Angel again. And he was from Daly City. And he had a whole bunch of Daly City support gear that he had purchased with his own money when he was in Daly City. We had a prospect that had got a large family settlement. So he bought all that Daly City gear to sell with our stuff to make money. And I had a really cool hat from Daly City. And I had that on in New York. And Papa's the one that hit me with the bat. So just kind of, I'm wondering if that was part of the reasoning of people having an attitude. Oh, Daly City, huh? Another mother, and Pee Wee being like, me and Pee Wee were close, and everybody knew that, and it just come to mind just here last week, just a conversation. I thought, man, because I didn't know that Pee Wee had a problem with Papa and the Daly City thing. I never heard that story before. My son was telling me, and I'm thinking, hey, this could be something. So, of course, I told Pee Wee, he's like, hey, damn, bro, I never thought about that. And I'm like, yeah, I know, that's my thoughts too. So it's just one of those things. Kind of makes you wonder.
So from the outside looking in, I feel like maybe they knew that you guys were going to be put on freeze and everybody was about to be thrown out of the club, and they just looked at it like a free ass beating to give to somebody.
I think, to be truthful with you, I think my president had one coming, and I happened to be the vice president, and he didn't show. So take this home to him.
Do you think he didn't show because he could feel the tension?
Well, there was some tension. He knew it, but I didn't. Some of it I wasn't completely up to speed on because I hadn't been home in a month. You know what I mean? And you don't talk on the phones. You don't call your brother and say, hey, what happened at the meeting? Fill me in. And if you don't see a member from your meeting or your charter, so you don't get all of the information until you go home and get with the secretary to read the minutes or go to the next meeting and read them and hear what's going on. And a lot of shit can happen in a short time. And that club, there's a lot of things can happen in a very short time. Not being in a meeting for a month and being an officer is kind of a bad thing. You need to be more on top of it. You need to know what things are happening all the time. Things are happening all the time. There was a lot going on back then too. The Black Biscuit operation thing was going on. We were dealing with Mason Mike and all that crap was happening. Hoover got shot. There was a lot of stuff then, just like there's now. It never stops. It just keeps on, the train just keeps on rolling, man.
Do you feel lucky that you got out of there with your life?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
Why do you think, usually something like this goes down and all you hear about is they took somebody out in the clubhouse, very rarely have I seen, I have a picture of your face. It is, heavyweight boxers don't look like this.
No, it was, I'm still to the day right as of right now. It's like, what happened and why? Because I know what I was there for, and I know what kind of member I was, and what I did, and I tried to do everything the best I could. I tried to be the best Hells Angel you could be, and I tried to follow the rules of the club. I spent lots of time with Sonny. Book signings, movie review in Rockford. I took him to the airport. I picked him up from the airport. I stayed at the hotel that he was in the room next door. And I got asked to do that. I was a prospect at that time. I didn't pick to do that, but I got picked by Hells Angels that thought, hey, BA is the guy that we're going to do that, use to do that, because he's a stand-up guy. And that was JW from Rockford. Good bro, I've talked to him a couple times since I've been out of the club. He's out now as well. There was, all the guys that I was around when I was in were great great guys. You know, they were. I mean,
And now most of them are out of the club.
a lot of them are out. Yeah, a lot. You know, a lot of them are gone. You know, they're gone. They're dead. You know.
You know that it wasn't the plan when you got there because
No,
they shot
it was
they
not.
took pictures of you and the bike to put in the
It,
calendar. Like they wouldn't have
it
done
was
it.
not. It was that was definitely not a plan by any means. I know. I mean, that was not a plan. That was not a plan. I don't know if anybody truly knows, except for the ones that actually did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know who knows the truth. If anybody doesn't know it at all, I know what happened. You know, and I know what I remember. And I wasn't strung out. I hadn't been up for days. I wasn't drunk. You know, I wasn't high. I mean, I was gonna go home, and I was hanging out because I got asked to, and respectfully, I said yes, I will. I could have said no, I'm not hanging out waiting for him. I'm leaving. I would have been maybe stomped then, or got told, hey, you know, adios or whatever. I don't know, but I didn't. But I didn't do that. I gave respect where I thought it was due, and Brendan. I like Brendan. Brendan was, you know, he was a good, you know, every conversation I ever had with him was a positive one. I got something from it. You know, I got something from his conversation with me. I learned something by it. So I respected him for that matter, to, to honor his wishes. And I don't know if he knew all the details or whatever. He just wanted to make sure that he had members not, you know, having a way to get home, you know, 2 states away. So, and I can respect that as well.
Yeah.
It just was really weird and ironic how, you know, it all was around John, and John was crazy, man. He was unpredictable. You just didn't know. When you didn't know, you could be a friend one minute, next minute he's black in your eyes. You know, this is
Right.
the kind of guy he was. He just was an office rocker kind of guy. You know, I mean, one minute he's fine, next minute you're fist fighting. That was probably the hardest. You know, like not going to Sturgis. You know, the next year, and that was part of that was what I did. That was part of my program. You know, everything was like structured around doing that. So now all of a sudden I'm like, man, what am I going to do? You know, and I never went. Not that I was afraid. You know, I wasn't afraid. I never was afraid about any. I mean, hey, I was not afraid. You know, but I was use wisdom. You know what I mean? Like, don't set yourself up for something else just because you're wanting to go nosing around. But I just didn't go anymore. You know.
Yeah.
And that was a bummer because I mean that was a good time. I really enjoyed going out there and helping him. I mean, we had a blast, man. We had a lot of fun.
Had they not put you out bad, had they not told John Merchant, hey, he's out bad,
They did.
what would you have done? What would you have done then? Would you have stayed in the club?
That's a good question. You know, I mean, I probably would have.
Mm,
I probably would have just to have the opportunity or a chance to confront who did that to me.
yeah.
You know, I mean, that's the thing. That's the bad thing that I don't. You know, I seen some things before. I seen some happen in Gunnison. Men do things one on one.
Yeah.
You know, real men. You know, you want to call you out. Hey, you know what? I think you should step outside and do this like men do. But you don't bring six of your friends. You know, that's the kind. You know, when I opened my eyes in the clubhouse, laying on the floor, I can guarantee you there was more than three guys standing above me. I
Yeah.
can't tell you who they were, but there was a few standing over the top of me.
Mm,
Yep. And I don't know who the girl was. If she ever sees this, man, thank you. You know, she stopped the train. You know, the screaming. I mean, she was, you know, a woman scorned. You know, she was screaming, man.
yeah.
Why did you do that? I mean, she was. I don't know if she's seen it happen or if she came in the room right after it happened and see me on the floor or what, but her voice was carrying a very loud presence, you know.
Yeah.
And I remember her helping me wash my face off, and she just kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I can't, you know, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "It's all right." She said, "No, it's not all right. This is not okay." I don't know who it was, and I don't recall seeing girls there. I mean, there was girls there on Saturday night, for the party and stuff. But I had a black sweatshirt that she must have handed me, and it was dripping. It was heavy. It was wet, and I had blood on my hands, and I'm like, man, how bad am I bleeding? But it was right across the bridge where that split. That's where all the most of the bleeding was coming from, was right at the bridge, but it was already swelled up, so you couldn't tell where it was coming from.
Just the fact that they tried to get you to come back to the club.
There's still a lot of members that were there when not particularly in New York, but they're still in the club. There's still a handful of guys still in Chicago. I loved Chicago. I loved all them guys there, Meats and Al, and those guys were great dudes, man. They were fun. I looked forward to going there. I couldn't wait until they had something happening. I could, it was like, man, we're leaving right now. Let's go. They were just good dudes, but they have a rule, and they have to abide by that rule. And I understand that, and I don't hold anything against them. That's just the way it is. Like I said at the beginning, it does something to you. You feel betrayal. You know what I mean? You're like, I can't do this. This is not right.
Yeah.
So you don't. That's the weird thing. Because they're the reason why you're in the club. I mean, if there was nobody in the club, or you was in the club only for yourself, well, what good is that? You join it to have brotherhood. Where there's supposed to be honor. You're supposed to be your brother's keeper. You know what I mean? You're supposed to be there regardless of the situation, bad or good. You don't stomp on a guy when he's down. You're supposed to stop and pick him up and carry him if you have to, or let him lean on you, but don't stomp on him. And that happens a lot. I mean, look at all these guys, man. All these guys doing these podcasts are getting, look at George, man. Golly. Wow, a crock of shit, man. That dude, 40 years as a president, and he gets just crap, total crap. Everybody. I mean, Angelo, I watched that, what an interview. I mean, man, but I know that guy's feelings. I know how he feels. Exactly. And it bothers you could say that it don't bother you, but you're lying if you say that, because it does bother you. You know what I mean? Because you don't invest everything you have. You're willing to sacrifice all. You know what I mean? I mean, I have a business. I had a wife. I had kids. It didn't matter. I mean, it didn't matter. I'm doing this. This is what I'm going to do. If you don't like it, don't know what to tell you. I'm happy. If you're not happy, go get happy. You know what I mean? Because I'm not changing my venue to pass it. I'm not going to live miserably for everybody around me to be happy. I'm not going to, you know what I mean? So I did that before, that ain't worth a shit either. So I did what I did, and either dealt with it or you didn't deal with it,
Yeah.
And I loved what I did. And I wasn't doing anything bad. I mean, everybody's like, oh, Hell's Angels. It's the people that make it bad.
Yeah, it's just certain ones too.
Individuals, like like one of the individuals, but hey, guess what? He got shot in the face. So, karma's a sucks for the guys out there, but
it just seems like there's these bad apples that get into and it's not just the Hells Angels, it's all the clubs.
Oh yeah, and the thing about it is, and I feel like this too. If you just join a club and you just stay to yourself, and you go to a little party over here and you go to a little party over there, and you hang out with maybe just one guy, you'll be in the club your whole entire life and never have a problem. Not ever. But you start going to all the functions and hanging out with this guy, and doing this and this and this and this, pretty soon you become an option. You're now like, you set yourself up for, hey, who's this? Oh no, we can't have that. And I see, and that's what happens. It's like Pee Wee.
Yeah. And John Merchant was a part of that too.
Yeah, I mean, here's the guy that's already on the ground. Come on, man. I mean, come on. This is ridiculous. But it didn't kill me. It just made me a little stronger, a little wiser. I don't regret ever being in the club. I mean, it was a great thing for me. I learned a lot. I did a lot of stuff that I probably would have never got to do. I got to meet some really, really good people.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I can't associate with them anymore. You know, that's not that I wouldn't. I
As
would. That's their business. You know.
as every year goes by, though, the chances are that you are able to associate with them actually grows because yearly the guys from your generation more and more are being picked off by the club, and you guys are all kind of able to talk to each other again.
Hopefully, you're gonna come this year, right?
Yes, yes, I'll be there.
Yeah, that's a good time. You'll enjoy yourself. It's a really nice place.
I can't wait. I can't wait to meet all of you guys and enjoy the music and the
But we
booze
have
and
fun,
the
man.
barbecue.
We have a blast. You know, it's cool. There's
Yeah.
just no drama. There's no, it's fun.
That's what I want. I just want you and Pee Wee up here and me just over here in the corner with my mic on mute because there's no reason for me to talk at all. And just let you guys go and talk.
Stories, we compare this happened, that happened, and knowing a lot of the same guys and a lot of the same events that happened and went on, and it's just crazy. There's so many things you can talk about. I mean, you never run out of things to talk about. Once me and him get on there, maybe we can do the question Q&A together. I think it would be better.
That would be awesome.
You know what I'm saying? Then
Yes.
then you can put all this together for one. You know what I mean? I think that'd be the best way to do it. Because I mean,
Absolutely.
he's like, "You gonna do it without me, BA?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." No, I'm just kidding. So
Well, it's good this way too. So everybody gets to meet you and kind of hear your story. And they've met Pee Wee already and heard his story. And now you guys can just go do your thing.
I mean,
And
there's
it'll be awesome.
things that me and him talked about. That we didn't see. You don't. That's the thing. It's like with the cross-dresser being in the street. You just don't. You would never.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just crazy. It was the same way with me. I mean, there was stuff that I was like, what? What? Who? You gotta be kidding me. Love you too, bro. But yeah, it's man.
Yeah. When he told me about that, and I had, he tells you something like this and you just got to keep it inside. You can't say it. And then it blew my mind. He's like, you wouldn't believe about that one right there. I was like, oh no.
Oh shit. Yeah, it's fun. It's funny.
Well, all right. Thank you all for coming and meeting BA. And I can't wait till BA and Pee Wee get on here. It is going to be awesome.
Have a good night. Thanks, Rick.
All right, brother. Thank you for coming by.
Yep, no problem.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming to Vegas Profile Stories. I appreciate each and every one of you. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. This is who I was, but it's definitely not who I